March 5th, 1989, a day I will never forget. I moved from the sunny shores of Southern California to the frozen wasteland called Alaska. My friends and family tried to talk me out of it, but I said I was committed. And they said I should be committed to a mental hospital. But why would someone do such a thing? Mr. Contest Chairman, esteemed judges, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. Why would a normal and healthy 23-year-old man move from such a beautiful place as Southern California to Alaska? Well, I was inspired by the sourdough tales. And the word sourdough comes from the old gold miners who brought sourdough bread in their packs as they traveled north to the gold fields of Alaska. I wanted to experience the adventures of the sourdoughs. When I left Southern California, it was 25 above. When I arrived in Alaska, it was 25 below. 12 hours later. I settled in Anchorage, which is the largest city in Alaska. And this was after the boom days of the Trans-Alaska oil pipeline construction. It was no longer the boom town that it had been. And people told me stories about these times. It was a wild place to live. And one of the hot spots was called Chilkoot Charlie's Saloon. Just imagine a giant log cabin full of booze, blaring music, and bogans. It was such a dangerous place at Chilkoot Charlie's that they would check for knives at the door. And if you didn't have one, they'd give one to you. As soon as the snow melted that first winter, I began to enjoy bushwalking in the many wilderness areas outside of Anchorage. This is until I found out about grizzly bears. There's a big difference between grizzly bears and black bears, and it's important to know the difference between the two. It's quite simple to do this. If you see a bear, climb a tree. If the bear climbs up after you and kills you, it's a black bear. If the bear knocks a tree down and kills you, it's a grizzly bear. But there are ways to protect yourselves against the grizzly bears. Most importantly, most grizzly attacks occur when they are startled by people in the wilderness. So they recommend that you sing songs, carry on conversations, make noise to warn them that you're coming. And one of the ways we do this is with bear bells. You wear these on your pack, on your clothing, and the bears know that you're in their area. So they know that they should move on if they don't want to be interrupted. So it's a pretty easy way to protect yourself. But biologists have done studies to find out where the grizzly bears are located. So they do this through looking at their droppings, the grizzly bear poo. And they found a very simple and effective way to tell the difference between the black bear poo and the grizzly bear poo. And they found out that the grizzly bear poo has the bear bells in it. Many of the grizzlies live in the area that's called the tundra. And this is the large area of Alaska where there are very few trees due to the harsh conditions. And you can see for miles and miles. There were two bushwalkers hiking on the tundra, and they saw a very large grizzly coming towards them from the distance. The first bushwalker took off his pack, took out his running shoes, took off his boots and put the running shoes on. To which the second bushwalker looked very surprised, and he said, "There's no way you'll be able to outrun that grizzly." To which the first bushwalker responded, "I know, but I'll sure be able to outrun you." My first years in Alaska, 2 summers, I worked as a tour guide and bus driver. We tell people about the sights, the animals, the nature of Alaska. It was very enjoyable. It was quite an amazing amount of bird life in that area. One of the birds is called the mutton bird, which you've probably heard of because it flies from Australia to Alaska and back each year over 15,000 kilometers. There's also one called the Arctic tern, which flies from the tip of South America to Alaska in returns. And the Arctic tern always flies in pairs. And they say that's because one good turn deserves another. But anyway, I would drive tours quite a bit, and one of the places we'd go is called Portage Glacier, which is the most visited site in Alaska by tourists. And if you're lucky and if you get to the glacier on a day where it's not cloudy and raining, you can see the glacier way in the distance. If not, you can watch a short film about the glacier from the warm and cozy visitor center. And at the visitor center, they have what's called the international restrooms. And I thought this was because there are people visiting from all over the world. But I later learned it's because first you're Russian, then European, and then you're Finnish. After 10 years in Alaska, I finally learned the truth. They called them sourdoughs because they were sour on Alaska and they didn't have the dough to leave. I wasn't quite a sourdough and I didn't want to become one. So my wife and I, we made like mutton birds and flew from Alaska to Australia. We moved from the frozen wasteland called Alaska to the tropical paradise of Melbourne. And we even brought our bells, beer bells. Contest chairman.